Welcome to Mimir Library, where timeless stories find their voice. This is Chapter 14 of Waves Between Us by Amir Honarmand. Enjoy.
Sunlight streamed through the windows of Totley mornings, painting golden rectangles across the wooden floor. The cafe was closed for prep, the quiet hum of morning preparations replacing the usual chatter of customers. Alara hummed softly as she ground cardamom pods with a mortar and pestle, the fragrant spice releasing its aroma into the air. The familiar rhythm of preparation centered her, as it always had. At a corner table, Liam sat with his laptop open, occasionally glancing up to watch her work. His camera lay beside him, lens cap on for once. The comfortable silence between them felt like a conversation of its own, one they'd been having since that rain-soaked night when everything changed. "The mint's particularly good today," she called over her shoulder, measuring the ground cardamom into the coffee pot. "The storm must have done it some good." Liam made a sound of acknowledgement, his fingers tapping against the keyboard. The soft clicking formed a counterpoint to her humming, a domestic symphony that had become familiar over the past few days. Then the clicking stopped. Alara sensed the shift immediately. She turned, wiping her hands on a towel, to find Liam staring at his screen. His expression was unreadable, suspended somewhere between shock and wonder. "What is it?" she asked, though something in her already knew. His eyes remained fixed on the screen, as if looking away might make the words disappear. "An email," he said, his voice carefully neutral, "from the Mediterranean Visual Arts Residency Program." The towel twisted between her fingers. Outside, a street vendor's bell rang faintly, marking the passage of time that suddenly seemed to accelerate around them. "And?" she prompted, her voice steadier than she felt. Liam looked up then, his blue eyes finding hers across the room. They said yes. 3 simple words that changed everything. Not unexpected, they talked about this possibility, planned for it even, but the reality still landed like a stone in still water, ripples expanding outward. A soft breeze nudged the curtain, bringing with it the scent of salt and distant markets. The wooden floor creaked beneath her feet as she shifted her weight. "Of course they did," she said after a pause, summoning a smile that was genuine despite the tremor in her hands. "Your work is beautiful." She crossed to him, the distance between counter and tables suddenly significant. His laptop screen showed the formal letterhead, congratulating him on his acceptance to the 2-year program. Words like distinguished, portfolio, and Lisbon jumped out at her. "It starts in 6 weeks, he said quietly, scrolling through the details. "They want confirmation within 3 days. Alara rested her hand on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath her palm. Real. Present. For now. "Are you going to accept?" she asked, though they both knew the answer. "Yes." He reached up to cover her hand with his own, but not the way I would have before. The email sat between them, black text on white background, the official marking of an ending and a beginning all at once. No dramatic music swelled in the background, no rain pounded against the windows, just morning light, the smell of cardamom, and the quiet click of the ceiling fan overhead. 6 weeks, she repeated, tasting the words. Not forever, but not tomorrow either. Time enough to prepare, to plan, to say a proper goodbye that wasn't really a goodbye at all. Liam turned in his chair, pulling her gently onto his lap. His arms encircled her waist, strong and steady. "Lisbon to Antalya is 4 hours by plane. I checked. Multiple times." A laugh escaped her, slightly watery, but real. "Of course you did. And there's this invention called video calls. I hear they're quite popular with long-distance relationships." The word hung in the air between them. Relationship. Not fling, not summer romance. Something with roots and intention. "We'll figure it out," she said, and found she believed it. The trembling in her hands had stopped. Outside, life continued, waves against the shore, vendors calling their wares, the distant hum of scooters on cobblestone streets. Inside, something new solidified between them, no less real for being untested. Liam reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his expression softening. "I'm not running anymore, Alara." She leaned forward until their foreheads touched, breathing in the scent of him, coffee, salt air, and something uniquely his. "I know," she whispered. "Neither am I." The cobblestone streets of Kaliki welcomed them with familiar embraces, narrow passageways opening into unexpected courtyards, ancient walls bearing the weight of centuries. Alara and Liam walked without hurry, their pace matching the tranquil afternoon sun that filtered through cascading bougainvillea. They passed under an archway where they'd once stolen a kiss, Alara's fingers trailing along the weathered stone. The memory hung between them, unspoken but present. "Here," she said, tugging him gently toward a small shop tucked between a spice merchant and a carpet seller. Inside, the scent of old paper and leather wrapped them. Bookshelves climbed toward the ceiling, each laden with volumes in a dozen languages. The shopkeeper nodded in recognition but didn't disturb their browsing. Alara's fingers danced along the spines until she found what she sought, a thin volume bound in faded blue cloth. The pages were yellowed at the edges, the Turkish text inside slightly smudged from countless readings. "My grandmother used to recite this one," she said, her voice softening as she turned the pages. She read aloud, the Turkish words flowing like water over stones. Liam watched her lips form each syllable, her eyes following the lines with reverence. Though he couldn't understand the words, he understood the rhythm of her voice, the way certain phrases made her pause, and the slight catch in her throat at a particular line. When she finished, she closed the book gently. "It's about the sea," she explained, "how it touches every shore, but belongs to none." They left the book behind, but Alara knew the words would travel with them. Further down the winding street, they found the small courtyard with the ancient tree where they'd shared their coffee weeks ago. The afternoon light dappled the ground through its broad leaves, creating shifting patterns that seemed to dance with each breeze. A street musician sat beneath the tree, playing the strings of a baglama. The melody was haunting, neither sad nor joyful, but somehow both. They stood listening, Liam's arm around her, her head resting against him. No cameras recorded this moment. No screens captured the play of light across the stones. They simply absorbed it. The music, the warmth of the sun on their backs, the distant call of a street vendor, the scent of jasmine mingling with wood smoke from a nearby house. A kitten darted between ancient columns, pausing to stare at them with amber eyes before disappearing into a crack of the wall. The echo of footsteps from other visitors bounced off the walls around them. As they continued their walk, they turned down a narrow alley where someone had painted one word on a weathered wall: Cal. Stay. The blue paint was fading, flaking away in places, but the word remained clear. "I think I used to believe goodbye meant failure," Alara said finally, her voice quiet against the stone walls. Liam turned to her, his eyes reflecting the golden light. "And now?" She looked up at him, at the face she'd memorized in 1,000 different expressions. "Now I think it just means I was lucky enough to have something worth saying goodbye to." His fingers tightened around hers. They continued walking, the echo of their footsteps blending with the sounds of the ancient city breathing around them. Moonlight spilled through the half-open window of Alara's apartment, casting silver ribbons across the worn wooden floor. The ceiling fan turned lazily overhead, its gentle whirring harmonizing with the distant rhythm of waves breaking on the shore further away. Alara's bed was pushed against the wall, giving them a perfect view of the night sky, a canvas of velvet black studded with stars that seemed close enough to touch. Alara lay with her head nestled in the hollow of Liam's shoulder, her body curved against his side. They were fully clothed, comfortable in the night's warmth, needing nothing more than this closeness. His fingers traced the delicate veins on the inside of her wrist, following their path like rivers on a map. "My grandmother used to say you could read a person's future in their wrist," she murmured, watching his fingertips ghost over her skin. "What does mine say?" He extended his arm, offering his wrist to her examination. She took his hand, turning it gently. "That you'll travel far, but always find your way back to the sea." She smiled, tracing a line across his palm. "And that you'll never learn to make proper gazleme, no matter how many times I show you." His laughter rumbled through his chest, vibrating against her cheek. "That's eerily accurate. What else did your grandmother teach you?" "She taught me how to tell when fish would be plentiful by the color of the sea, how to make baklava so sweet it would make your teeth hurt. My grandfather taught me to whistle with grass between my thumbs, and how to tell which way was north using just the stars." Their voices drifted between topics like leaves on a current, childhood pets, the first photographs he'd ever taken, the time she'd accidentally put salt instead of sugar in a batch of cookies. Words flowed, then faded, giving way to comfortable silence. The fig tree outside her window rustled in the night breeze, its shadows dancing across the ceiling. The old bed frame creaked as Liam shifted, drawing her closer. Her hair brushed against his neck, soft as silk. Alara lifted her head to look at him, taking in the planes of his face silvered by moonlight. Her eyes held everything they'd shared: laughter in Kalayichi's winding streets, tears in the rain at Chiralo, quiet mornings over coffee, and this moment, suspended between what was and what would be. "You're not a part of my past, Liam," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're part of my story, even if you're on the next page." He pressed his lips to her forehead, his arms tightening around her. The sheets rustled beneath them, cool and soft against their skin. "We can't undo the lives we've built," he murmured against her hair, "but we can try to build something across them." She nodded against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her cheek. The sea hissed faintly below, a constant reminder of the world beyond this room, beyond this moment. But here, now, there was only this: his breath mingling with hers, the weight of his arm across her waist, the knowledge that some connections transcended physical presence. Their breathing slowed, synchronized. No urgency, no desperate grasping at fleeting pleasure. They had already seen each other, known each other. This quiet intimacy needed no proof, no performance. They didn't need to speak about tomorrow. The silence between them held everything they had chosen, and everything they still would.
The story ends here, but the library is always open. Subscribe for more free audiobooks.